As long as there's poverty, injustice, inequality that persists in this world, none of us are truly at rest, or can we say we have arrived. Where we see wrong, corruption, inequality, or injustice, it is our moral obligation to speak out wherever we stand and wherever we breathe. So greetings and welcome to everybody to this FrankTalk dialogue, and it's titled Inequality and Poverty in a Post-Apartheid South Africa. What should be done? I'm Arun Naika, and I work at the UMTAPO Centre, and I'm the Special Projects Director. So welcome to everybody. I'd like to acknowledge today the Vice Chancellor of Durban University of Technology, who's here with us. We're so glad to be at your campus. Welcome. I want to also acknowledge the Steve Biko Foundation, who are here with us today. You'll hear from them a little later. Also the Director of the UMTAPO Centre, who is here. You never see him, but he's around. Welcome here. Just a few logistics. For people who have their cell phones on, can it be on silent and only if you're twittering? And the hashtag is FrankTalk. There's a live streaming going on, so let's just be aware of that. There are other people who want to tap into what's happening here today. I also like for us to be very aware of the space for the next 2 hours. It's a very special space. And so as of this moment, let's leave outside anything that will trouble us in how we participate in the dialogue. And it is about finding solutions. And the solutions we look for are, firstly, within ourselves. What are we going to do to address this issue? Knowing very well that many of them are structural. So I have the pleasure of calling on Dr. Sibusiso Moyo. It's always a pleasure to invite you to this part of the morning. And she's going to welcome us on behalf of DUT.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Good morning, everyone. Okay, morning. I see that some people near the door still trying to get in. I don't know if everybody is sort of comfortable at the moment. So I just want to say thank you, Program Director, and also to just welcome, in particular, our Vice Chancellor and Principal, Professor Tando Mtembu. If you can raise your hand so that people see he's here. Yes. You can clap because after this we'll be very quiet. So you have to get an exercise, right? And then Mr. Dina Sodia from UMTAPO Centre, where is he? I was told he was here. You're right at the back. I think you should come to the front. There's no seat really, but there's a nearer place. Oh, there's a seat next to the Vice Chancellor, so you've been upgraded. You can come down. We're waiting for you. Thank you so much. You can also give him a special welcome. And then we've got Mr. Tando's project, Steve Biko Foundation. Is Mr. Tandos here? No, he's not with us today. Where is he? Oh, so you're actually very active, right? You're not like the project director in the office. Thank you so much. It's good to have you with us. And then we've got our panelists, I know who'll be introduced later. Dr. David Mohale is the Director of Special Projects from the Office of the Vice Chancellor. Can you raise your hand? And then we've got Professor Olivia Tapuri from the School of the Built Environment and Development at UKZN. Do you want to raise your hand? Yes. And then we've also got Mr. Samuel Mchali from the Provincial Secretary for the Abadali-based John Dolo. I tried to Google that, and then you should see what you get on Google, actually, if you Google the organization. It's quite interesting, actually. And then our moderator as well, Ms. Chantel Christopher. Welcome to DUT. And I just want to also acknowledge the special colleagues who are here from UKZN, MUT, UNIZU, as well as civil society, the Steve Biko Foundation, of course, family, friends, and colleagues of the university. It does give me great pleasure to welcome you to this event on behalf of the university, which is the first, for us, it's the first inaugural event for FrankTalk Dialogue, which is taking place at the university. And I hope we can have more FrankTalk dialogues in the near future. Of course, it comes at the right time because we are looking back and looking at our situation now. It's the right time to have such a dialogue in terms of, if you look at the inequality and poverty levels that we have as a country. And then also coming down to KZN as a whole, but also if you look at DUT as well, which is also just a it's a reflection of what's happening as well at country level, so as a microcosm of that. So 25 years after democracy, South Africa still features as one of the most unequal nations in the world. Okay, it's not the very most unequal. Actually, if you Google the data now, the most unequal is probably the United States, but you have to check that information. But South Africa, of course, is one of the top. With a Gini coefficient of about 0.63. So for those of you, I'm a mathematician by background, so for those of you who are economists and other people are doing engineering and what it is, you might wonder what's the Gini coefficient. Of course, it just measures how unequal things are, so it tells you how apart we are between the rich and the poor, right? A small population of the rich people. So for this measure, the Gini coefficient is just a measure of income, of inequality ranging from 0 to 1. So 0 means you are really what? The difference is not so much. If it goes closer to 1, it means the difference is a lot, yes? We've got some engineering students here. Or statistics people. Yeah, I see some people smiling on the other side. So the question is, and then also, so there are many challenges that we face as a country, which you are aware of, most of you, in terms of the unemployment rate being very high, the poverty levels being high. There are political issues as well that are there. So the question is around what are the implications of that? And if you also know that if you look at the statistics report, recent statistics report, you will see that also the number of people who are on social grants is also quite high. It's estimated to be around 17 million at the moment, and this might also grow. So what are the implications of that as well as a society? So today when we look at all the evils we face, poverty, hunger, crime, violence against women, and other types of violence as well, and what I want to call sustained Bantu education, even though you could argue that we are past that, but if you look at just recent debates, there are people talk about, what are the implications of that. In fact, there are some schools and schools which don't have resources, as well resourced as the schools that are really the top schools in the country. So that divide also still continues. So the question we ask is, what can be done? Who's going to do what? That's why I came here today, because I'm really interested in this discussion. And what is our economic and political climate like? How does the current conditions help us to shape the future? What can we do now in order to shape the future? I know May the 8th is coming and many people are interested in the outcomes of that. I'd like to then maybe not talk too much because you all came here to listen to our expert panel today. But in particular, we want to understand the underlying determining factors that will help us to move forward from our current situation, the present moving forward. And in fact, Steve Biko, I just wondered that if he was here today and looked for everything that he went through during the struggle, what would he say about our current status? So I think that is also something we can reflect on, to just think about it. Many people died for our struggle. A lot of people went through a lot of things. And the question is, if they look at everything they did and look at where we are now, what would they actually say from all those sacrifices? And a quotation from Steve Biko, which says that for meaningful change to appear, there needs to be an attempt in reorganizing the whole economic pattern and policies within this particular country. And when we talk about country, it just doesn't mean just South Africa, because as you look at South Africa, we are also affected by the global patterns and even by our neighbors as well. So, and then you can also reduce that to a unit of analysis of here, your university, your home where you're coming from, All those things matter, actually. So when you talk about interaction, so the question is, when we ask what we can do, we also have to ask with whom, who's going to do what can we do to change our current situation. Today in the newspaper, I was just reading something about Home Affairs, just to give you a typical example, because we deal with a lot of students who have to sometimes go to the queues when we have these exchange programs. For example, we want some students to go for some entrepreneurial event somewhere, and then they have to get a passport. But if they have to think about the passport, sometimes we have to say, sorry, you can't make it, because the queues are very, very long. And so in the newspaper article, someone, of course, has written, for those of you who read today's paper, for example, about, complaining about Home Affairs, what's happening to the country, why should we wait for this long? So the question I also want to ask is that, so that's just one example. Then there are queues for people waiting for social grants. Whatever it is, you go to hospitals, public hospitals. Actually, if you are very sick, you can die in the queue, and if you don't have money. So there are many things that affect us on a daily basis. So the questions we ask is, yes, we can complain, but what can we do where we are to make a difference? So I just want to thank the panel for agreeing to be part of this event. And we look forward to the discussions and hope we can engage on that. Thank you very much, and a special welcome again to everyone to the UT. Sorry I took longer than expected. Thank you.
I saw your passion run away from you. I want to now introduce Thando Sipio, and he's from the Steve Biko Foundation, and he's going to just give us an overview of this program. Thando?
Good afternoon. Afternoon, everyone. When I stand before you, first thing I want to say, it is truly a great honor. And I come from a particular tradition, and please, with your permission, my elders, Vice Chancellor, and all colleagues here, I want to be true to who I am, true to the spirit of who I am. And so with those words, I want to say, Black Power! Black Power! When I say Black Power, you say Black Power! Black Power! Black Power! Black Power! Black Power! Thank you so much for that opportunity. I just wanted to remain true to who I am. The Vice Chancellor of the university, and all colleagues, students, members of the public, first thing I want to say is that I welcome you to this FrankTalk dialogue. And I want to extend a word of thanks to our partners, the Durban University of Technology, for accepting our proposal to host this very important conversation here. And I also want to extend a word of thanks to UMTAPO, and we are truly grateful, and we owe this occasion to the efforts of Arun Naika, who has made it possible for us to partner with the Durban University of Technology. As you know, that 2019 marks the 6th democratic elections in South Africa. The Steve Biko Foundation is currently facilitating a number of dialogues nationally around the country. So far, we've been to the University of Limpopo. We've been to the Central University of Technology FM, CUT-FM, in the Free State. And this is the 3rd of the national dialogues. All of these dialogues will be taking place before the elections. So we have, 6 more dialogues that we have to facilitate before the 8th of May. The next upcoming dialogue will be held in the Northern Cape. And the next one after that will be held in the Western Cape. We are still scheduled to be going to the Northwest, at Mahikeng FM. 4 of these dialogues are taking place in communities like this one. And 4 of them are taking place on air, on radio stations. And the reason why we did it like that is that we wanted to interact with people in person, but also we wanted to reach broader audiences. And really the reason why we're facilitating these conversations is to look at some of the critical issues that are affecting communities in South Africa in the lead up to the national elections. Obviously, there are a lot of issues that are affecting our people in different various communities. But for us as an institution, we have identified the issue of inequality as a key factor that affects all people, almost all communities. And so the overrunning theme of the FrankTalk dialogues that we're facilitating is focused on the theme of poverty and inequality. These dialogues are aimed at reflecting on some of the critical challenges facing South Africa since 1994. It's already been stated by Professor Moyo that 25 years into democracy, South Africa is the most unequal nation in the entire world. And according to a recent Oxfam Global Inequality report, the 2 richest South Africans have wealth equal to the poorest 50% of the country. And furthermore, the Living Conditions Survey of 2015 by Statistics South Africa said that South Africa had a Gini coefficient of 0.63, the highest in the world. So this makes us one of the poorest, if not the most poorest community or country or nation in the world. Today's FrankTalk dialogue will closely examine South Africa's economic trajectory since 1994, looking at what exactly should be done to address and to reduce poverty and inequality. And really, more than just standing here to dialogue and to speak, we are hoping that our panelists will assist us in coming up with solutions, yourselves included, because we're not only here to just learn from them, but we want to also hear what other communities, what are people thinking, what should be done to really address the challenge of poverty and inequality in South Africa. And we are looking forward to the insights of our panelists. We're grateful to Professor Mtapurio. We're grateful to Babuntlandla, Dr. Mohale, as well as Ms. Christopher for accepting our invitation. And we really look forward to insights. With those few words, I want to say thank you so much. And yeah, you're all welcome.
Thanks, Tando. Good, we have loud voices. Just 2 more logistical announcements. There's a book being sold, Voices of Women, Time to Remember, by Women from the Black Consciousness Movement. And for young people in this room, students at tertiary institutions right here, if you are interested to join the UMTAPO students movement, please get in touch with Tabile. Tabile will stand up. She will talk to you about it, and we can do that at the end. Okay, I'm being told that you can't hear me. Technology.
Someone.
When we sing, I can ask them to sing, but they know you will sing and I'll be singing alone. Yes, I've just been reminded that we don't sing anymore. And we used to die for that chance in the past. Whenever technology didn't work, we had something else to do. So I said I might be singing alone here. Is there something? Oh, are we okay? we're ready to move on with the program. I want to introduce to you Chantal Christopher. Thank you for Chantal for accepting our invitation. And Chantal works in the discipline of occupational therapy at the School of Health Sciences at the UKZN. So I want to hand over to you, and this is your session.
Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to see a full packed room. We have lots to talk about and to find some solutions to. So that's what I want to flag before I hand over to the panelists to introduce themselves. Let's try to not make this a session where we're complaining and itemizing our woes, which are plenty in our country. Rather, let's use that as a base to try and figure out the way forward together. Having said that, I've convinced everyone that we're going to shake it up a bit today so that it's not an ivory tower perspective or lived experience perspective only, that we're going to send it back to you from time to time. So be ready to tell us what you're thinking or to throw questions towards the panel. And without much further ado, I'm going to ask Dr. Mohali, Mr. Mkhize, and Prof. Mutapuri to introduce themselves. And I've asked them to think about how they want you to know them and to flag what brings them here today and the context of inequality and poverty they find themselves in. So, unfortunately, it's over to you, Dr. Mohali.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm told I'm David Mohali, so I would love to believe that I am that person. And this is how I think I would like to be reminded. That's how I always introduce myself, for one simple reason. I've never really confirmed it, scientifically confirmed if I'm indeed the person I'm told I am. So somebody elsewhere decided that I may have some exciting ideas. Some of them may find them boring about the topic of poverty and inequality. And yeah, I am hoping that we are going to have an exciting exchange of ideas. Call them intellectual swords if you like, because I think that is the only basis in which we can be able collectively to propel the country forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Channel. I would like to greet everyone. My name is Tlantla Mjali. I'm from Abahlali Basemjondolo Movement SA. And I would like to thank Thando and the rest of the people that that made this a success. And thank you very much for inviting me over. I hope I will learn a lot from the people around me, because I'm around the academics, and I'm one of the people from Abahlali Basemjondolo, the most, I would say, from the poor community who couldn't even afford to come to the university. At least today I'm in DOT for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and I would like to thank, obviously, Steve Biko Foundation, the Vice Chancellor here, and the invitation that came through from colleagues. My name is Oliver Mutapuri. I'm at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I teach poverty and inequality, and I'm the current interim chair, NRF chair for applied poverty reduction assessment. My interest in this topic is because it touches on many issues. I was just talking to colleagues there, it's very intersectional. I like it. We're going to talk about land, we're going to talk about poverty, inequality, we're going to talk about growth and so on. But we shall try. I'm here to learn from you and know a bit more in terms of how to get our understanding of how to get the country moving forward. Where are the problems? We'll try and pack that and to see what solutions we can provide rather than just talking about the problems. We know the problems, and it's a deep problem. Poverty and inequality is a big issue, obviously linked to unemployment. And yeah, thank you.
start with that overarching, systemic, structural, the big question. How did we get here to this place where we know we're sitting with a terrible Gini coefficient, greater than our BRICS partners for some odd reason. 25 years later, most of the people on the ground, 50% of our population are living below the poverty line, particularly, according to the latest reports this week, coming off analysis of that 2015 study, it's female-headed households. So women are bearing incredible brunt. So there's two layers, the upper poverty layer and the lower poverty layer, and between the lower and the upper, the majority of people that are struggling at the lower limits are women. So I want to flag that when I hand over the mic now. Can you build that into this structural analysis of how did we get here? And what are some of the measures we need to think about? Do we need a redefinition of what poverty means? Or how are we seeing something that's wrong? So I'm going to hand over to Shanta maybe to start off, to kickstart.
Thank you very much, Chantal. I think this talks to most of the people that are not rich. When referring to the people that are not rich, I'm not talking about the top two that we always talk about, the people that are known. I just want to go down to tell them, the poverty was created. I want to believe that the poverty, and nowadays we can call it a project, because it started a long time ago. Before those people that we think they came and stole our land, even our forefathers did have the place of a woman is in the kitchen. And then they couldn't go out to work. They couldn't go out to support the families if their father dies. Then they will have to depend on the next man. So it also filters down to the times when we got colonized. So I'm sorry about that. So when they came and took the land from the people and made people depend on them for income, because we did believe that the land is the wealth, and we still believe that in where I come from. I'm not sure about the rest, but the land mostly is the wealth in South Africa and in Africa. So I would say the poverty was created by the system, the capitalist system. If we can move to an egalitarian society, like we can change the system, which is almost impossible to do, but the system to me as a problem. We can point at the political parties, we point at the government, we can keep pointing at the other things that we think are playing a role to this one. Look at the community, if we can take it back to the times where my child will be your child. My child wouldn't go to bed on empty stomach. So to me, land for agricultural use, so that I can be able to plow and feed my children, was exactly the time when they took that land away from us. They took the wealth that we were supposed to. They left us depending on the people. So the dependence mostly, I'll touch it as the dependence is the cause of all this. We all depend on something. So if we were self-dependent, that's what Abahlali Basemjondolo teaches the communities where they are involved. They teach themselves dependence. They educate their self-education, because some of us can't afford to come to the tertiary institute like this one here. Like me, I'm honored to visit today. It's the first time getting in the gate of the tertiary institution. I think I'll just have to let it go there for now, maybe hand the mic to the professor on the side. And I'm honored to be with the professor. Most of you faces the professors maybe on a daily basis, but me is the first time. And I shook his hand, and I'm still going to shake his hand.
We work with communities a lot, and we learn from communities. In these are real lived experiences. These are real lived, life experiences. So my take on this issue is that I want to agree with Glanza at the moment, because the issue that we're discussing now, we can trace it back to some centuries of colonialism. We trace it back from there. We trace it back to 50 years of apartheid. And that same systems and processes. We see that one of the writers wrote it as the, when he was describing the situation, was that her name is Goldstein, was saying that that period was characterized by economies of dispossession, a lot of plunder, a lot of stealing and theft of property, land, livestock, where people were coming into these countries, and saying these are empty spaces. Whoever was resisting, either killed or were taken as slaves, So slavery, we trace it back to that time, and it's protruding to these current periods. And obviously, that can't be addressed in 25 years. It's years of subjugation, years of theft and plunder. So in a way, now understanding 94, coming to 94 and after, obviously when we look at poverty and inequality, they are a reflection also of some unfairness. They reflect also policy. Policy because policy has the power to redistribute. Policy has the power to, so in a way, what I'm trying to say is that it's got to do with policy as well. To address these issues, you need policy. We have seen some countries that are progressive, who have done that, changing in terms of their social welfare systems. They are very progressive, their tax systems are progressive, and so on. So also to address it, there ought to be some policy, measures that have to be taken. If they are not taken, the whole setup will carry on. So there ought to be something. Things have to change, and that's my take on this.
All right. Let me not take it as far as the 1400s when Vasco da Gama first arrived here, and then followed by Van Riebeeck in 1652, and etc. We know what happened. I want to take it back to 1980s. Some of us might know that around 78, 79, the leadership of the ANC led by Tambo visited Vietnam at a time to try to seek advice in terms of what kind of policies that they would pursue. Now, an interesting finding from that mission was that the country that was led by the Communist Party in that country actually advised the leadership of the African National Congress that communism as an idea or socialism as an idea could not work as far as economic management is concerned. Some of us may want to go to the Green Book to read that. Is found in the online documents of the African National Congress. Fast forward to 1989, we might know the history that then some sections of ANC leadership started having secret conversations or talks with Afrikaners in terms of what possibilities existed towards a peaceful transition. And that's what then birthed what we call negotiated settlement in South Africa. And others, of course, would argue whether South Africa did have a revolution or it was just some transition. Now, this is my point. We call it negotiated settlement because the two warring parties had to agree on what would be the common interest of the country. And each of them held a subjective self-interest. Now, the question which we now need to ask is, what was the self-interest of the National Party and all other stakeholders that supported the National Party? Their self-interest was to make sure that beyond democratization, they will continue to preserve the economic power. What was our self-interest as the liberation movement and everybody that supported us, we were just made interested in political power. But interestingly, we always knew that European imperialist interest in Africa and Asia was not driven narrowly by political interest. It revolved around economic interest. Now, the critical mistake, which in my view is strategic, is the fact that perhaps because out of fatigue, I mean, ANC was formed in 1912, so understandably it could be that psychologically they were exhausted. Out of mental fatigue, tactically, they agreed on a condition that we continue to suffer from today. What Joe Slovo called sunset clauses. And at some point, Julius Malema asked the question, at what point will the sun rise? Because it seems like it had set forever. This speaks to the point that Prof was making about policy. So just to sum this introduction, is that during negotiations, the compromise that was reached at the time, if we were to contrast it to the compromise or agreement, in fact not compromise, the agreement that was reached in 1910 between the English and the Afrikaner settlers, secured the mutual interest of both two groupings to make sure that they dominated the economy. The opposite of our negotiated settlement was that it was struck in such a way that it perpetuated the preservation of economic power for white people. That is why they are always the first one to defend the Constitution, where amendments have to be made where it matters most. And they forget that the Constitution has been amended for about 13, 14 times, but all those amendments were cosmetic. But the moment you want to refer to Section 25 of the Constitution, because that's where we are likely to overhaul the system, white people, particularly Afrikaners, will be the first one to cry loudest foul by the fact that no, there's nothing wrong with the Constitution. So I'm saying our foundation in 1994 remains fundamentally flawed, and if we are to do anything about poverty, inequality, and all other attendant problems of our economy, we have got to correct that what we left in shape and did not do anything with it. That's my introduction. Thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen. So just to recap then, we've got a couple of things. We've got land as an issue that's keeping us imprisoned. And then Oliver and David are pointing out that we have some work to do regarding policy, which is related to land as well. So I was talking to the gentlemen, they were involved in a discussion with me earlier, and I was saying, do we not think though, if we're talking frankly, that the in English we have that saying, the stable doors are open and the horse has bolted. That 25 years later, can we revisit those particular policies that we're living through today? Because having said that, if we think about the Constitution and land and our venture into neoliberal economic practices, that drove a whole lot of other policies, from RDP and GEAR interventions to where we are today, where we're saying there is a social net for people. We do have grants for children and the disabled. We have some grants for the unemployed. How are we going to drive new policy, and what are these policies? Do you guys agree with me? Should we ask them that? Who wants to ask a particular question? Someone? Other than that one. Like, what are those policy changes particularly? Okay, let's go with that. Anyone? Is there a roving mic?
Sabona, everybody. My name's Mbali in the township, and we've been in this environment. My whole life I worked basically in the rural areas. 24 years at Prince Mashini Hospital in Umlazi, and still working in V-section with children with disabilities. I respect everything people say and things, but because I've been at grassroots level, I think it's so important for us to, like the union, and I'm a NAHAW member, injury to one, injury to all. So we have to start small. Working in the hospital for so many years, from 92 before 94, watching what people do to individuals. If we can fix that, apart from fixing everything else, I'm not saying you mustn't fix it, and it's very hard as a white person to talk because there will be prejudice against me as white and things like that. I would like your man to change his song to African, we are Africans rather than we are blacks, because some of us are actually Africans, born and bred, and our hearts are here too. So I would like it to be a mindler for African rather than just for black. So thank you. So thank you for that. I'm also a member of Amnesty International, and our chairperson has just walked in, so for human rights from the beginning. But I really believe each one of us, if we can do our little least bit, we will make a difference, because somebody, the coordinator said, is there hope? How can we not have hope? We might as well just go and dig our graves and die. You have to have hope. You have to have hope. You have to build on it. But respect each individual, grow each individual. And I work with disability, they're not respected. Umlazi, Dr. Dlomo doesn't respect health. He doesn't fill the posts. He doesn't look after enough people to do the work in the Department of Health. So please, looking at those little things as step by step, a foundation building on everything from 1910. I grew up in Bloemfontein, so I'm the roots of the ANC. Okay.
All right. The question was, which policies do we think that either needs to be tweaked or overhauled altogether? I think we need to study the premise for that. And opportunistically, because I think those that I interact with regularly, I'm not apologetic, I'm influenced by Marx. Now, my starting point would be that in 1883, when Marx died, Engels said at his funeral, first and foremost, before men can pursue art, politics, religion, etc., we must first of all eat, drink, have shelter, and have clothing. That is the basis for our humanity. Any other policy that does not take into account the fact that before we can come here and theorize about what our problem is, what we think we can do, that I cannot think freely and deeply if I'm not hungry, if I'm hungry. There could have been somebody who would have wished to be part of this conversation, but because they are not properly clothed, and which is an economic question, they have not been able to make it here. For me, that should be the starting point, which would now bring me to the question that I'm not either for capitalism or socialism. I believe in something that works. ANC has been trying to do what East Asia has done, following the model of the so-called developmental states. But I think they follow that in theory, not in practice. Because if you look at how Japan recovered from the Second World War, they looked at what worked best in America, and they looked at what worked best in other countries, in Soviet Union. They protected the economy because they felt that it needed to be protected. And only after they regained their strength as a country, they only marginally or gradually began to open it up so that it can compete with global economies. That's what the other countries have done as well in East Asia. Of course, there might be variation in terms of the degree or the extent to which they did that. Now, unfortunately, in our case, and of course, the context of our democratization is also important, because we democratized at a time when globalization had become the most fashionable thing. If you wanted to sound smart, you had to shout globalization. Now, understandably, that put pressure on the ANC, the government at the time, that there was little scope to maneuver. That is why the introduction of GEAR was actually our own imposed structural adjustment program, because we worried more about the ratings from international agencies, which continue to give us headache even today. And anything that we want to do which is in the best interest of our people, we worry about the so-called notion of markets, despite the fact that we never ask the question, who is this market? Because markets is not some abstract phenomenon that exists. There is actually real people, few of them, so powerful to control the thinking and actions of every part of the world. If you are doing something that they please, they tell you that the rand has performed well. If you do something that will benefit your own people, but they don't like it, you will be told that the Johannesburg Stock Exchange has plummeted. Unfortunately, we have got a leadership which has not been bold enough to say, if it means we must suffer in the short term, let us take that kind of bold decisions, but to make sure that we protect the long-term prosperity of the country. Instead, what we did was the reverse. Under Mbeki leadership, we thought that the economy was doing well, but that was placebo. You know, when you have headache and then you take Panadol, you think that the headache is gone. And then boom, all of a sudden, economy got a shock. And then up until today, we have never recovered. And of course, part of the mistake that many of us in academia have been doing, without necessarily saying that there were not many wrong things that happened post-2007. Of course, 2007 became an incident which must never be repeated again in the country. But it just helped to fast-track the shaky ground that was already there even under Mbeki leadership, because the world economy got so complex, and unfortunately we are so dependent. Towards conclusion, it cannot be that 25 years later into democracy, we have not taken a policy position that says we must process the minerals that we extract. We cannot defend and justify why we continue to be the home to about 80% of the platinum in the whole world, in Rustenburg. But we continue to ship that out of the country. When it comes back as processed goods, we pay so heavily for the things which we could have processed here. We allowed the deliberate killing of manufacturing sector. That is why so many people are not working today. So I'm saying there are structural problems which we need to appreciate. The fact that we democratized at a time when there was little scope for the country and leadership to maneuver. But on the other hand, there are some policy positions which I think we could have pursued. And to date, ANC and no one else can explain why RDP was stopped so quickly. I think RDP could have been allowed to be in place for a few years, see what it takes our people to. Only after we were beginning to see results, we could have then said it's about time that we terminate this policy and adopt for something and go for something else. But today, I don't think that, and by the way, all these other policies that we have been changing names from EA to ASVISA to National Development Policy, in essence, is the same thing. I've got a friend who's interested in economic studies. We have just been changing labels, but the essence remains the same. That is why economic performance is not changing.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tabile. I'm from UMTAPO Centre. I have a comment, firstly for Bali at the back. You mentioned something about it shouldn't just be black power, but it should be power to Africans. I feel like the reason why it's black power, or it's emphasized that it's black power, is because that, firstly, as the majority, we're the ones facing dehumanization, we're the ones that are still living in poverty. So I feel like saying that it should be power to all Africans, it diminishes what we're trying to achieve, which is liberation for black people. It's kind of saying that all lives matter. It's the reason why Black Lives Matter is being emphasized is because that we are the ones that are facing segregation in the economic sector. So I feel like we should, even though it is important that Africans' lives, all lives matter, but also at this current point, in this current predicament that we are facing, it's important to say that Black Lives Matter, Black Power. And then I have a question for Bakujali. It's, you said that systems need to change. So what system would you suggest? Because you have some people saying that communism is better than sort of capitalism. So which system do you think is relevant and would help us as South Africa? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking Bali Nebag for touching the grassroots. I think that's where we're missing we miss the whole goal. The soccer players will know. You miss the whole goal post. Because if you want to talk about people and the people are not there, they're not involved in what you're talking about, that's where you miss them. You don't miss the goal, you miss the whole goal post. So from there, I would like to offer Bali a membership on the Abahlali Basemjondolo. Yeah, I know Abahlali Basemjondolo is a membership-based organization and we represent the poor. I wouldn't say we represent the poor, we are the poor. So we don't let anyone speak for us, we speak for ourselves. We want everybody to know, even the government, if the government knows, if we know that I will call him a bourgeois, our president, if he has ever been to Umkokwame, my share, he will know what is life. So let me just speak on this one. I think, okay, I'll come back to the question first. She asked me, I think socialist is a way, and there's no other way. That speaks to the people on the grassroots, because we know in a socialist way, as the people that make decisions, as the people that benefit for their sweat, whenever they go and work, they work for what they're gonna use. They work for what's gonna benefit them, not the one that creates the gap in between. Like we say there's inequality, and we say the poverty is like the poor people are getting poor and the rich are getting richer. That also takes us back to Yahweh in Africa, right? In Africa, if you get someone from UK visiting South Africa, he will ask you if you got lions in your backyard. So be in a bush. It's a survival of the fittest. If you got money, your money will grow. If you got nothing, you'll work forever. So I just wanna, let me not be too long on this one. Let me just release and give it to my professor. There's much to it, but socialism as the way, and there's no other way. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Namtaram Son. I'd like to pose a question to the professor, but firstly I must also appreciate the sentiment that we just said, in fact the whole content of where we come from as a country, in particular narrating exactly after the negotiation that was said by Dr. Mohale. In fact, I think he's on point. It also speaks to the question that I want to narrate or put to you about inheritance. Do we go and also research on inheritance? Post-1994, the negotiation years, the formation of the constitution, the inheritance in terms of racial systems, racial capitalism, and also gender inequality amongst our black brothers and sisters, a patriarchal system, and how also in terms of that particular inheritance as in line with the patriarchal system does also affect racial segregation amongst ourselves. So that's what I just want to pose to you, Professor.
Thank you. My take on these issues, I will just touch on what David also said and also come to you. David, you need policy, and these things don't happen by chance. Markets don't care who's poor, who's not. Markets, they don't care who doesn't have anything to eat. Markets don't care who doesn't have a house. All they want is to make their money. So for me, it also touches on the issue. Yes, she spoke just now about the issue of inheritance. Inheritance does matter because if you look at the Oppenheimers, it's all, it's all in the family, and for me that also tells me how fragile this economy is. So when people talk about land expropriation, for instance, without compensation and so on, this is a very big project, and it needs strong leadership, it needs strong, the populace has to support it, because, once you, imagine if the Oppenheimers were to take all their money and the rocket, all their money out, the whole country will collapse. All the banks, the ABSAs and them and Netbank, they will collapse in a day. It doesn't take a long time for a bank to collapse. One day, they take out their money, it's gone. So, for me, the structure in terms of the economy haven't changed. The structure hasn't changed. So that structure needs to change in the sense that I haven't seen black people, I haven't seen black banks, people owning their own banks, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen people owning their own networks, for instance, to say, I have my own network, MTN like Vodacom, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen black people in the marine industry, that's where the money is. Yeah, marine industry, having their own ship, their own boats, I haven't seen that. I see them fighting for 10 rand, 5 rands as the taxi owners. 5 rands, 10 rands, they are doing car wash, they are doing hair salons, they are into music, while others are making real money. So I have a problem with those structures until I see that even JSC, they say that no, there's some bit of some penetration by black people. But if you look at it very carefully, you see that it's more to do with the pension funds than individuals owning, a substantial, shares in any given companies. But I haven't seen that. So these structures have to change. It's a very big project, and it takes long. But for me, also the bigger one is that the issue of land distribution has to take place. We can't run away from it, even however you do, but we have to plan for it. It needs careful planning. It needs skills. You have to emphasize skills, give the training and so on, because it's a big project. So for me, land distribution is a necessity. It's, for me also, I would call it a time bomb. If it doesn't happen, there are serious consequences. We see a lot of violence already because people don't have jobs. We see it and they're becoming more brave and so on. I had one of my students, he came only yesterday, he said that he was standing outside his house and a guy came, just drove back with a machine gun and said, just give me everything you have. Just like that on the street. So the violence is there. We have to talk about these issues, So, and also, we had one guy, I'll just give you very quickly as I talk. I want that freedom from violence. I can have freedom, other freedoms and other rights in an egalitarian society. You must have those freedoms, the freedom, to associate, the freedom from that violence that we are talking about. I had a friend who came from Denmark. He was saying that when he came here to South Africa, he said, everyone is worried. You're always watching your back. You're watching your car, you want to watch. But in other countries, it doesn't happen that way. So there's that culture of fear as well. He was trying to theorize on that culture of fear. But my point is, policy has to direct, and I'll leave it there for now.
Okay, so I'm going to stay the next round. I think we need to stay around economics if you guys go with me, because it's a big thing. It is the thing that we're all looking towards to change our society. So Steve Biko said something, I just want to get the quote. He said that for meaningful change, there needs to be an attempt at reorganizing the whole economic pattern and economic policies in this country. So I'm interested in the smaller things, because like most of you in the crowd, knowing people that are poor, I work amongst very poor people in Kenville. I see the same things that a lot of women in this crowd are seeing. So I flighted it earlier. I still haven't heard anyone's deep response to it. That a quarter of our population, the women, are living below the lowest poverty lines. So other than policy, how do we actually create economic transformation at that level? Through beyond patriarchy, beyond the cultural inheritance people are suffering from. Those are the things that I see are keeping our HIV transmission rates very high amongst our women, keeping our women as the domestic servants here in Durban particularly. So let's have a round of, here are some thoughts around base level transformation at economic level, not just policy. Sorry, David.
I think I'll be comfortable to speak about young people generally, irrespective of their sex. Look, despite the fact that I have a strong view that structurally we are constrained, I still do believe that there are small things that the state can do in order to agitate for the kind of transformation that we're talking about. Simply, the state is the biggest procurer of goods and services that are used within government itself and elsewhere. And to date, I've never understood why the state has been unable, despite the fact that I think around 2004, we enacted Cooperative Act. I've never understood why we have been unable to say, for instance, for furniture, let us set up a cooperatives of about X number in specific provinces for young people and X number for women. And then you direct that for any public entity that needs furniture, which they do every second month for reasons we do not know, that procurement should be done from there. Many of us, I mean, State Department, despite the fact that we have been shouting for industrial revolution, we continue to be largely dependent on paper. I've never understood why there cannot be a contract with paper manufacturing companies, and then you set up another cooperative for women or for young people, and you say, for stationery, or specifically for paper, if you are to procure as a public entity, this is where you go. These are the practical things which I think I can do. Now, what are you unintentionally achieving by directing that kind of investment? You are also, in a way, forcing through policy the dominant white companies to change. And this is what South Korea did very well in the 60s, that you either had to comply or you were sent to jail. I'm not sure, because the first thing we'll be told about our rights, that no, everybody has the right to decide this, but we never speak about responsibility. And the mental mistakes we have done with our constitution is that even when it comes to business, the constitution seems to protect more the right of business, and that right, unfortunately, includes intentional refusal to transform at the expense of the collective well-being of the nation. And I do think that, quite honestly, any other public entity can do this. In my past life, I cited a practical example. In our region, we had so many national and provincial departments, all of them with high numbers of fleet. I mean, Department of Education alone has got so many cars. Department of Social Development, Department of Labor. And my argument was, let us sub cooperatives of young people, and then you just have about 3-4 people who are experienced as managers for HR, finance, and for whatever that you need. And then you force through policy that every government vehicle in the region should take, every government department should take their vehicles to be serviced. And then entity set up by government itself or through the municipality. This is what Japan did by establishing shire balls. They deliberately made sure that they had what they called nascent industries or businesses. If as a big developed industry or company were not complying, they will ignore you. They will direct their resources to these small companies, give them support, make sure that there is enough research capacity so that there can be established linkages between what local business was doing with what was the trends in the international space. And that is why today, all of us speak about the so-called Asianization of the world. That was not a miracle. It was not manna from heaven. It came from intentional policy choices that were made by leadership in those countries. However, you also need the buy-in of all the stakeholders, which is, I think, is the biggest psychological problem we have in this country. You may want to blame it on apartheid if you want. If today we say that David is going to set up his business here, black people are the first ones who are not going to support David. That is why in our townships, almost all businesses that we grew up seeing have been taken over, sorry to say this, by our foreign brothers and sisters. In the past, we knew that I did not need to go to Checkers or ShopRite to buy a loaf of bread. I could just buy it from Mr. Numalo, 5 houses away from my estate. That is no longer the case. All those tech shops that we used to see have been taken over by our foreign nationals. Now, the question, which is societal, it must not be about government only, what is it that we overcome this cognitive problem that we have as a nation? Unfortunately, like a typical Marxist, I don't have an answer for that.
Thank you very much. Me, looking at this, I'm thinking, we always talk about empowerment in Abashali. Because this goes back because we are a membership-based organization with 65% women, 75% youth. That exactly shows you who's suffering from the poverty, who's suffering. It all goes back, as I've said before. It goes back on our African mentality. I wouldn't say black now, because if you go back, even the white women used to stay at home while the white, I would say, fathers going to ride on a cart when black people were pulling it. So I will say, it all started back. It all started. It was plowed in our brains that a woman's place is in the kitchen or it's somewhere at home, not in a place of work. So now it's about time we transform. It's about time the government take a look at what can be done to get the youth away from the drugs. I would say that softly. Away from the drugs, away from those unnecessary entertainment that we waste money on, and let them concentrate on the future, because the youth is the future and the women are the bearers of those people that are poor. So if you are born in a poor community, this system that we're running on, you will die poor. I don't know how, as he said, even the crime in a township is getting high. I think they want to get rich overnight. Because they know the only way for you to stay rich is to get rich first. And the system blocks the poor people from getting rich. So I think on this one, the empowerment from the government, in all the sections, they have to make sure if he needs a manager, he may have to appoint a lady there and make sure most of the youth is there. And the other thing I want to touch on, I'm sure people will look at me as that person, but I am. You know, there's some people that are forgotten. We say if you need a job, you have to put a CV. The CV, you must have the matric certificate. Most of us didn't have. Then where do we throw those people? Most of the people, the poor people, can't make it up to matric. And then the government just forgot about them. And then we think we can tackle poverty. And the majority of the people in rural areas, they are like my old man, my mentor, Jacob Zuma, couldn't make it to make matric. But where is their place in the economy? I will leave it there. Thank you.
My take on this one would be, my thinking is that, you know, education for me is very important. Provide good quality education from grade R to from ECD, from primary to secondary education. Because we see that the problems that I see also, even provide good quality for educators themselves. So education, you have to strengthen. There's no two ways about it. We need good education. The other thing that I would concentrate on is to focus on, if you look at even China, they sent their people to America, to Europe, and all other places to learn. And then they went back home. And these are the people now, that's where you see China is where it is now. Yes, education, they went to learn. South Africa could do the same. We know where the shortage areas are, the critical skills. Send those people, then teach them those critical skills. Let them come back and transform the economies and society and so on. The next one I would tackle is the issue of health. Give good health. Give health. People need good health. Because I'll give you an example. Costa Rica, for instance, just said we'll give our people health and education free of charge all across the board. And the rest you can handle it yourself. Free education up to wherever you want, up to university. Free healthcare, people can, that's one approach. But if you look at all these other scenarios, how China is what it is today, they had to go through that process of land reform as well. So they parceled out small pieces of land, but they also coupled it with some industrialization, very forceful industrialization and urbanization. So we see also cities as attractions of people. Cities have a role to play. Even the Durban, the eThekwini municipality has a role to play in all this. Provide those spaces where people can build, houses. A house is very important for me because there are also things that house-related sort of, if you don't have a house, you don't have dignity, the cost, of travel, and some of the people who are in those, areas where they are, the areas are not geologically proper. So a house provides many things. People have used their houses even as an asset, to do business from home. But you need that house. So for me, those are the issues I would tackle very urgently. And also the other one that I would tackle, if I was a minister, I would tackle the issue of those pit latrines, the bucket toilets. Those should be eradicated by now. It's 2019 and we still talking about those and those other, the mud schools and all that. That shouldn't be in South Africa in 2019. So that would be my take. Go for education. That's my take. Education first.
Oh, thanks. My name is Muso Kajobi. Actually, I'm not going to pose a question, but I'm going to make a couple of comments based on the presentation that has been made. Firstly, I would like to say that South Africa is not a poor country. South is a very economically well country, but the challenge is that we have many poor South Africans, which tells us that the economy in South Africa is not distributed accordingly or equally. Therefore, how are we going to try and address that? We need to transform all spheres in South Africa. Start by transforming education from basic education to tertiary education. Because currently, as South Africans, we depend a lot on government. We've been conditioned to depend on handouts. Then, at any given time, when we are crying, we point fingers to government, we're demanding jobs to government. But the reality of the matter is that government cannot sustain the kind of system whereby everyone depends on government in order to make it. So what we need to transform the education that should teach us that we can be able to sustain ourselves without having to rely from handouts from government. We've been conditioned as South Africans that we need to be consumers rather than producers. We need to be job seekers rather than job creators. Therefore, the direction we should be taking to government is to say, government, please create platforms that will lead young South Africans to become entrepreneurs, to become industrialists, and so forth, so that the very same people can be able to create employment. Because those who control the economy in South Africa have proven for a very long time they did not want to invest into South Africans economically, because they want South Africans, black in particular, to remain consumers rather than producers. That is the first. But also, we need to transform a variety of state apparatuses. For example, media, as a non-cohesive arm of the state, is controlled by the capitalist powerhouse. And media is very influential to the minds of South Africans, because they interact with media on their daily basis. They watch TV, they are in social media, they read magazines, newspapers, and so forth. Therefore, those who control the economy cannot sell ideas to the oppressed. They cannot sell progressive ideas to the oppressed, because they will then be a threat to them. Therefore, for example, countries like Japan, there are policies there that control media and they restrict media. In Japan, you cannot just play anything on TV. You can't just air a show that promotes alcohol, drug abuse, and crime and so forth, because subconsciously that will influence a young child from Guamashu, from Umlazi, because every time they open TV, they see alcohol, drugs, and so forth. So South Africa, they should also be able to limit such, because even too much democracy is a challenge, because they say it's freedom of expression, freedom, and so forth. But all those things must be controlled. So there must be policies to government to transform education, to transform media, and this will then subsequently contribute to the mental emancipation of South Africans, which can then later on contribute to the economic transformation.
Sanbonani. I'm Carl Vincent. I'm the chairperson of Amnesty International in Durban. I wonder, do you all know what Amnesty International is? It's a global human rights organization. And we have a group here in Durban, and we have 6 high school amnesty groups and 2 university groups. So I just want to tell you, all the issues that I'm hearing today, lack of housing, the Abashali people have been talking to you about, property rights, health, education, all those are enshrined in the Bill of Rights. And so we, as a democratic, as a democracy, have the right to elect to Parliament those people who are going to stand up for those rights. So it concerns me greatly that a lot of young people are saying they are not going to vote. Who here is not going to vote? Do you want to tell me? Let me see, who's not going to vote? Because I've done some research and a lot of young people are saying they are not going to vote. Now, if you don't have a vote, if you don't vote, you don't have a say. So you must listen to the parties, what they are saying, and you must hold those parties accountable to you. So only vote for people who are going to stand up for your rights, and especially for the poor. In our country, we have far too many poor people, and we need to be supporting and bringing them up so that their children can be educated, that there can be housing for all, there can be health for people, good health and good education. So please don't waste your vote. Vote for somebody who's going to change things for the better for all of us. Aman.
No, thank you very much. Zitule is the name, it's the same. I just want to also comment on the presentation that was presented to us. I think one of the first things that is paramount I want to speak on is on education. In terms that in 1976, students took it to the road and went to strike or protest against bad education. Now there's something interesting when post-democracy, we see many protests in universities, we see many protests in issues of basic education, crying files about education system. Now when you look at the education system that we are using in South Africa, there's not much real change from the one education to the system that was used pre-democracy. Now there needs to be a serious systemic change in an education system that we use, because the same education system that we profiles again is the same university, is the same education system that produces unemployment. Because many graduates are graduating, but they still graduate unemployed. Now also, we need to agree or to reach consensus on the fact that government has made many development attempts. But also, I believe that there is a public perception that we need to change, or to change the way that a public view things or perceive things. In many instances, you find that there are RDP houses that have been built. Instead of utilizing those RDP houses for better development of the society, you found people renting them out, which then dequates these few steps that we've taken in development. So in South Africa, we are really facing a perception problem when it comes to the society. I fail to understand from today why people at my same age, from the location where I come from, I was staring at them from grade 8. Now they decided, I don't know what happened to them, but they decided that they must leave school and go to corners and do drugs. Now there are many things or issues that one can come up with to say why people go to do drugs, maybe of their backgrounds and whatsoever. But I don't still understand why people decide to leave school and go and do drugs. So that's why I'm saying there's a general problem with the perception of the society in South Africa. But over, I think we are coming to a frank talk. We need to be frank in approach. Not all South Africans are poor. It's black people who are poor. It's black people who are finding corners doing drugs. It's black people who are telling John Dolo. It's black people who are suffering. And therefore, when we speak about developing the economy or transforming the economy, we speak generally about about transforming the economy for black people. Because it's black people in South Africa who are frustrated. It's black people in South Africa who do not have access to education. I always ask this, Comrade Mohale, where do Indians in duty register where we don't register? Because we don't find them in long queues, but you find black people standing in long queues suffering like suffering.
Thanks, Chair of the session. No, because the two others have commented. I have question for Dr. Mahal and Professor Mutab. Then I will have a question for Kant. I want to ask a question because we agree that the education that is given by South Africa is not producive or is not good for the economy. I want you to suggest what kind of education that can be provided to South Africa so we can be free and be equal. Then because Comrade Klant will come from KZN, I want to get your take in this one because from the Department of Economic Development, headed by Comrade Sihle, there's a program called Operation Vola, which speaks to say all small businesses, let's make an example, who sell fruits and veggies, they must be combined to cooperatives, and all government departments must buy resources from that. I want to get a take from there. What is your take about that program? Thanks.
It's Crispin Hampson from the International Centre of Nonviolence here at the UT. The first thought I have is actually about Steve Biko, because of course the danger is that we go back to Biko and then take a specific thing he said in that context and just parachute it into this context. And that's not what he was doing. He wasn't repeating what people had said 30 years before him. He was cutting across, disrupting people's existing ways of thinking. And so we've really got to be ready to challenge our existing assumptions about things. And I think for me, one of the dangers, although I don't disagree with David when he talks about Marxism and what we can value from it, but we really have a situation. I had a suffrage last night, I won't mention this well-known political personality, but repeating constantly Marxist phrases, the means of production and superstructure and so on. But actually what he lives is pure capitalism. Look how I'm dressed. Look how I come across to people. It's all of the values that we have taken in through globalization, and it's pure global capitalism that is the message. So I think that's my concern. It's not actually with a Marxist analysis, it's the use of Marxism to portray oneself as being for the people when you're actually about making your personal career in a very capitalist way. This morning I went out early. I had to go and failed attempt to get a haircut early in the morning. But on the roads, I see the cars full of, the roads are full of cars, and I'm not normally out there. I think, what is going on? So I'm looking at the cars, and it's people driving their children to work, causing air pollution, wasting their money. So what is that about? Is that the kind of education that the professor is speaking about? Or is this really about, we've got to get to the schools that are going to protect our privilege or get us into being privileged? It's actually not about learning. It's not about the intellectual development of young people. It's not about having schools which are places of safety for our young people. I have in my phone an absolute horror story from a school out near Pinetown, where a teacher tells me that in her school there are 1,500 learners in a primary school, and for the learners there are 6 pit latrines. Now, worse than that though, is that it's a school which has a culture of fear, of nepotism and corruption. And if I were to challenge those middle-class people driving their children to school, they say, oh, but the state schools are not good enough for my child. Well, then every state school should be perfectly adequate for the children of that area so children can walk to school. I mean, that's what we should be seeing as our absolute requirement. So education is a truly fundamental human right. I think the other thing I just want to raise is that in terms of inequality, one of our hugest inequalities is violence. The sexual assault against women in the society is something like, I forget, 5, 6, 7 times the international average, which is an unacceptable average in the first place. People don't often talk about this, but the assault and homicide of young black and colored men in our society is something like 8 times the international norm. If you were to say there's an epidemic of violence against young black people, especially black men, physical violence and sexual violence against young black women, you would be correct. And we have to address this. This is absolutely essential for us. We cannot even tolerate redistribution of wealth without addressing those issues. Thank you.
Guys, I will come back to the audience, but we're going to hand back to the panel to think and discuss things that have been brought up.
All right, so in 2004, if my memory serves me well, I visited United Arab Emirates. I think a place where many of us still dream of going to, Dubai. It's a very beautiful place. Now, there's something which I learned from that conference. I assume it's true because the Minister of Education was there. Now, they said that in their country at the time, I'm not sure if that still happens, if you were a student at university, you would work for 4 hours, and then for another 4 hours you would attend classes for 4 hours, and then for 4 other hours you would be attending classes at the university. So you've got 8 days for Monday. 8 hours from Monday to Friday. You know what you'll be doing. Now that had many spin-offs. That one, I think up until today, United Arab Emirates has full employment, what economists call full employment, to a point that for the last 5 years or so, it has been recruiting from outside its own borders because there's so many job opportunities there. And because it's such a small island with, I think, about less than 2 million people, there are too many jobs for the population there. 2, it also meant that the kind of debate that we have been having since 1994 in this country, which I think is false debate, is not happening in that country, where we will say the industry does not know what type of skills must be produced by the university. So there was ongoing interface between theory and practice on a daily basis from first year up until a person graduates. But one thing which we miss every now and then when we compare South Africa to other countries is an area which I'm not very strong on, unfortunately. The cultural impact of great developments that we see. For instance, in East Asia, it's very easy for people there to agree to take sacrifices in the interest of a common benefit. I do not think that as a country will agree to that, or in Africa at least. I mean, if today I would be told that, okay, David, let go of your 4 hours a day and then go do something else. Now that 4 hours which I'll be letting go of means 50% of my salary will be gone. Now if we were to sell that as a possible policy option to many of us, I think for the first time we'll see the so-called middle class rising. That is why I'm saying I think we still have a psychological issue which we need to deal with, not only as blacks but as a country largely. So I think in part I was trying to answer your question about what kind of education do we need, the skills, etc. I do think that debate is false. I don't understand why 25 years later Durban Chamber of Commerce cannot sit down with UKZN and say, hey, your graduates are strong on this, they are lacking on this, this is what we need. I just think that we are too busy not doing anything, all of us. And it's the responsibility that we must take. Nobody must be blamed, nobody must be exonerated. It's our common mistake. Let me briefly touch on the issue of land. I wanted to avoid it, but Prof brought it up. I think that with regard to what Chapter 2, the Bill of Rights says, with regard to the inherent dignity of every human being, I think for housing purposes, I think everybody needs access to land so that I can put up my shed or whatever structure. So as a principle, I think everybody deserves some piece of land where they can at least put up a housing structure. However, I think when it comes to productive land, that's where we must have a serious conversation, because we do not want to threaten food security or compromise food security. Today, as we speak, if you go to North KZN, you go to Limpopo, you go to some parts in the Eastern Cape, there are people already, communities already after chieftaincies that own a whole lot of land there, but that land is not being used productively. Now, the question that we must discuss is, I do believe that yes, where there is evidence that my land was forcefully taken from me, there must not be a debate about compensation. It must come. Whoever took my land must not be compensated. But that must not be linked to the conversation about food security. You give back my land, what am I going to do with that land? If anything, I do think that productive land should be in the ownership of the state. And then you lease that land, and then you will lease that state to skilled group of people who can then, with a very clear mandate, give them a definite period of time. One of the things that I'm told China did was that if you went to China as an outsider for investment, they'll give you a land at some rural place for you to develop, and you don't pay a cent. By the time they say, bring back our land, that land will be developed. So we could say, for instance, as a group, we give you this land for 20, 30 years, provided it's productive. We need maize, we need sugar, we need this and this and this. If you do not produce, we take the land back. I don't think for me that should be the kind of responsible approach which we need to have. But the wholesale approach that says everybody must be given land, and then we know that we cannot even cross pillage at our backyards, I think that is the responsible. And yes, I agree with Prof that I think we need to be responsible with regard to the issue of land. And we must separate what type of land we're talking about. Otherwise, we'll be setting this country up for failure. I do have a sense that many of us want to die here in South Africa. And because we want to die here, we want to grow our kids here, we've got to be very careful and responsible about the kind of policy choices that we must be making. I don't think any opportunism will take us anywhere. Thanks.
Thank you very much again. I want to go straight to his question. Yeah, the man on my left, what is his name? Sorry about that. That question is a really hard question, because if you look at it, we got that sometimes we got so many ideas that come up, that the government comes up with. Like, that's a great idea. If anybody look at it from any angles, you will see that's a great idea. People will benefit from that. But now we look at the nature of human. There comes the leaders. There are ANC leaders, IFP leaders, the government leaders, I will say. They'll do anything, just like a criminal on the streets, to get into your pockets before you know what was in your pocket. So I'm telling you, they can tell us to put our money together there, and then maybe in the next 2 weeks that there's no money there, and then who are you gonna blame? So it's better I fly solo. So I go straight to the other question I had on that side there, where my other colleague said that only the poor people, only the black people are poor. I beg to differ with that. Because Abahlali baseMjondolo have a branch in Maranreach. That branch consists of 115 colored community people. Those are the members of Abahlali, 115. And they are poor. When you get there, you will see the poverty in their eyes. So we don't have to generate or to generalize. Because in my branch in Mayville, we got 5 Indian families. They are poor, just like me. 1-2 times they go to bed on empty stomach. So I will say, let's just forget about color now. I would like everybody to be colorblind now. Because we are in South Africa, we call it a rainbow nation. If you see a white man on the street with a paper written on jobless, you must really know that man is jobless. He's not black, but he's poor. So let's look at poverty. As long as we think poverty is black, then we're misleading ourselves. We're misleading ourselves. South Africans are poor. Because if you think most of the people, black people are poor, I will ask you about that. Tell me, how poor is Patrice Motsepe? How poor is our president? So we look at Tokyo Sehwales and all the other people, how poor are they? But I'll take you to one man. If you take a corner here, I'll show you one white person that's poor. So we have, I think we have the database of the poor, of the rich people, which mostly is white, but there are black people that are rich. And we don't have the database of the poor people. We don't know who is the poorest, but we know who's the richest. It talks to our mentality again. So, as Umhlali waseMjondolo, I would say, when I look at a person, whether black, white, pink, or yellow, if you're poor, you are a poor person. If you're rich, you are a rich person. So, I would like to leave this one at that point, and leave it to the room. Maybe I stand corrected. I will say it again. I stand corrected. Maybe I stay in the wrong side of the city. And I will go straight to the business sectors. No, those people, they are really, really the nasty people. I would call them that. Because when they run their business, the ANC don't know. They always come at the last point. I'm not saying the ANC. I'm saying the government. It's only the language that in me, because I know that the ruling party is ANC, but the government, the South African government, as the last people to come in and say that company wasn't paying tax, but they don't come to see if they're paying the people right. It all talks to the system. And it even talks to the way the government looks at the things. If those people are still paying them tax, but they don't care if they pay me, they underpay me as Utlantla. So that's where the gap will remain. And it won't remain, but it will grow. It will forever grow. People will die of poverty, while other people will be swimming in money, saying, hey, there's money in South Africa. And I'll take to the other system that we want to use, the investor system. I will take you back to my farm. I'm from Ishowe, by anyway. I was born in Gamapumulo, where my father used to take to use the ox. We go plow in the garden. We'll make sure if we plow in Millis, we'll take everything from there. We leave nothing. That's investment. We invested by planting Millis. And we're taking everything that we can back to our countries. Let's say we build the English people are investing, the profits is going straight to UK, and we're saying this country is poor. But we're letting them live with our money. The government doesn't give me the money so that I can grow my business and still pay tax, but they rather bring the bricks to South Africa and let the sugarcane fields die that we have. Export sugar from Brazil. We're talking about, I think the system here is wrong. I would say it's wrong because we didn't know there was a rainbow chicken up when we're going Maritzburg. See, that rainbow chicken is no more, but we still eat chicken from Brazil. That is injected with chemicals, so we still talk of things that are not healthy. We talk of our health. I think the system here, it's all wrong. the government, the president we have represent the corporate world. I'm sorry about that. So he represents those people that need money from the people that sweat, and they still go home to get a loan from mashonitas. I think I'll have to cut it there too long. Thank you very much.
I like the point that David made about state procurement. That state procurement, if you look at even in Japan, they look at Toyota. It used to, the family started as a family business. It was Toyota. And they said, no, it doesn't sound right. Let's call it Toyota. They were doing sewing machines. But now they do ships even. It's through government support. Through government. So government is needed. That's why we say that there is no way we can do some of these things without government. Government is at the center of all these things. If you look at Norway, it's their government that supports them from birth to death. That's how it is. They support you in school, primary, secondary, finish university. They support you till death in your pension and so on. So issue of also land, that's why I say that it needs to be done in a very careful way. Because you don't just give people who don't have the skills, who don't have the machinery to do it. You need to train them, you have to plan. You don't need 10 million people to do farming. You don't need 10 million. Just good, black, say for instance, or you are talking South African commercial farmers, good ones. But always saying that yes, train those black ones also so they're able to export. They're also able to earn those foreign currency and so on. So the holdings need not be large holdings, and they can be small, but with a purpose. Meaning that are they, really, is it for selling flowers to Holland or whatever So you need to think through how it is done. I'll give you an example where, for instance, you don't want a situation where it becomes free for all, like what happened in Zimbabwe, for instance. If it becomes free for all, people are just going into the farms. You just go, you chase whoever is there. Someone is coming to steal, even where there was irrigation machinery, someone is stealing that. And after the whole scenario, the whole place is run down. It's no longer a functioning farm. Greenhouses have been broken into. Someone comes, he steals the truck. Someone takes the starter motor. It's no longer working. Someone takes the tractors. So you don't want that. It has to be planned. Plan it and see who wants. And also, if they look at it, that not everyone wants to be a farmer, right? Not everyone. Not everyone wants to be a farmer. So you have to say who wants to be the farmer. Who wants and how much land can we give you, depending on how much support will you get from government. Because government has to support. Even the current farmers were supported very extensively by the government to this stage where they are now. I'll leave it at that.
Good afternoon. My name is Poorest. I'll firstly like to add upon what my brother there said and what you said regarding South African blacks specifically being poor. I believe the reason why blacks are actually poor is because we actually have a very poor mindset. We actually have a very poor mentality as black people. For instance, blacks would actually look down upon each other. We as blacks will never support each other, and we expect other people to support us. We expect other races to support us while we can't even support each other. And then also looking at how, in terms of mentality, I mean by a black person will be given land, and the only thing that a black person also only think about is building a house for that moment. They actually think of short-term things that won't actually benefit them by anything. And then also thinking of how South Africans will actually, they live to impress other people. They do not live for, to actually do something or to actually reach a certain goal or anything. They live to impress people. They live to impress the streets. You'll find a black person having a very expensive car, but they have no house at all. You'll find black people who are living lavish, who look very good. Like for instance, in campus, you find black people wearing very, very expensive clothes, but at the same time, they are not, like, they use money in a very way that it's not productive. That's what I mean. And then another thing is, those who actually have rich mentality, who actually want to do something, who are actually building things, I think they're disadvantaged by people in power. Because people in power actually, they look, okay, I do not know how to put this, but they actually, people in power would actually help people in power. People in power would actually look down upon people who are not there. That's what you said. You said that the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. And that's because people who are rich would actually help people who are rich, and that's how it is.
Thank you. My name is Rodi. I don't know if it's questions or what, but I'm just going to shoot from the hip. Prof, I am a young black man. I'm educated. I played by the rules, but the system still does not want to accept me. What do you say to a black person like that? And the other issue, I've been listening to you, and all the countries or continents that you've been quoting, they're not here in Africa. You're not talking about black people. I'm sorry to say this, but yeah, I think most of us who are in this room, actually, this guy from we relate to him because you are intellectualizing and you are putting so much academic words and whatnot, you know, into a very simple, I don't know, but it's a simple matter. So yeah, I don't know if questions, whatever or whatnot, but that's all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
We'll take one more for this moment. I will come back to you.
Thank you very much. Greetings. Is it okay if I say? Yeah. I've been resisting wanting to say anything because I think, unfortunately, in South Africa, we've started boxing people into categories. And I was told this on my face the other day as well. And this is the trepidation I have of speaking about this topic. Firstly, I'm an Indian, so say, you come from the oppressive class, you people are oppressive people. I'm just saying, what's the comment? The other thing is I'm a businessman for the last 40 years. So I come from the capitalist class, and if you have to box me into a category, you say I come from the bourgeoisie. So I'd have very little relevance if I say something, but if you just give me the liberty of saying a few things. The fact that we're here in a frank talk that is inspired or in keeping with the sentiments of Steve Biko, I think we can't discount the fact of looking at his philosophy. And I think the starting point is that I think the greatest tragedy this country has faced is that it discarded Steve Biko's thinking of black consciousness. And I think somebody made this very valid point about mental emancipation. I think the gentleman also in the back said that. This is a very serious problem. I may come from a more privileged class. I didn't start privileged, but I say I'll box myself and say I come from a more privileged class. But from my experience as a businessman, it is without doubt that the system is all messed up, if I can just use that word. It's the entire system that's a problem. The last 20 years I've been in the manufacturing industry, and I've seen this firsthand. What is made, and I'm sorry to use racial terminology, what is made by white manufacturing companies at 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times more than what I can facilitate is seen as a more superior product. Because why? And even this, the problem comes from us as, if I can use the term, black people. Because what comes from us? Let me ask you this. How many of us would say I'd be comfortable going to a black doctor? Because if it's either an Indian doctor or a white doctor, we'd feel they'd have more competence than a black doctor. Okay. the next thing is, I think we need to separate the issue of inequality and poverty. The issue of inequality is a global problem. It's there. I don't know when and how that system will break. The rich will carry on getting richer because that system is built that way. It's meant, there's doors closed. Once you get in, that's it, you're there. So that will carry on for a long time. But I think the immediate problem, and this is the disaster we are facing in this country, it's a time bomb that's waiting to explode, is the issue of growing serious poverty. You cannot feed a man a vote, you cannot feed a man political power. You need to give them, sorry, can I have a couple of minutes? One minute. You know, you spoke about the rainbow chicken. Now, here's where the system is messed up. Tekwini municipality paid 15 million for a part of the rainbow chicken. They want to change it into a rabbit farm. The 200 people who lost their jobs are still jobless. The place is overrun with grass and weeds. So something's wrong. So I think that the last one I want to say, you spoke about 17 million people being on social grants. This is a serious psychological problem because what's happening is we have created a system or a thought process of dependency. And if we don't break that dependency, we are going to mire in this. We'll be talking this for the next 50 years.
Okay, so that's a nice point. I'll come to you guys. We're going to take a quick find out what the panel thinks. Because we've come to a point now, if I can sum up some of the thoughts from the floor. A lot of thought is that there's something going on with our consciousness. Something's wrong with our thinking. Whether we're calling it, we need to go back and revisit some black consciousness thought. Some of the panel forefronted that where's our collective thoughts? So is it born to just a word we like to toy around with? And another thing that has been flagged in the past 2 rounds amongst the audience and within the speakers is that there's a cultural aspect underlying our lack of transformation. So this is a nice juncture. I do know you guys have something pressing to say. I'm going to come back to you in 2 minutes. Okay? I'm going to hand this to Mr. Mkhize first.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting him to be jumped. Because that's a serious matter. You're really right on this one, yeah. If somebody can just, I don't know how it's going to happen, maybe touch our heads so that we can rethink the way we're thinking. Because there's a saying that says most of the people relate to it, I was born poor but I'm rich in mind. If we can use that, we can change this, the mentality of saying black, like looking at poverty as black. Poverty has no color. Let's all sink that in our heads. Poverty has no color. All that we have to do is act. We don't have to rely on the government. I still want to utter your words. That mentality of people depending on the government, and the government that we have is creating a lazy nation, the nation that will depend on the grant, the nation that have to depend, that calls for buying the votes, because mostly it comes in a statement. Sorry for taking too long. In all the statements, when they come, they say, no, we're going to up the grant, all the other security grants, like the child support grant, it's going to go up to 1,000 rand, and people will think, hey, I don't need to work because I've got 5 children, that 5,000 coming to my family, or I must make more children to get more money. So the problem is right there. The government is misleading the people, and the people are still stuck in that mentality of saying, once I'm black, I'm poor. Thank you.
Conversations of this nature will always be riddled with contradictions. At first we said we've got a systematic problem. Which system did we say is the problem? We say the system that was agreed upon in 1910 when the Afrikaners and English people agreed to exclude black people from participation in the economy and in politics. In 1994, when the so-called democratic government took power, this is what it inherited. It inherited a system that institutionalized security development. Number two, this is where we must now distinguish between truth and facts. It could be truthful that there is poverty in South Africa, but we must now dissect the facts. The fact is that out of 10 South Africans that we have, 6.5 of those that will be poor is black. Where does this come from? It comes from the system that we inherited. So why do you want to sugarcoat and say that poverty knows no color, this or that? Yes. I mean, if you go out there, out of 10 people, just count who is poor, just count the constituency that you represent, who stays in shacks. Have you ever seen somebody who stays in shack? No. So yes, the truth is that yes, there is poverty in South Africa, but let us not dismiss the fact. The system before 1994, in terms of allocation or spending on education, it spent more first on white people, then on Indians, then on colored, then on what we call Africans. So we're not going to run away from those facts. And this is the problem that we are sitting with, which we are still trying to solve from 1994. As a matter of emphasis, I do think that there are better policy options which the post-apartheid South Africa could have opted for. For reasons because we wanted to be too soft with the system itself, we've avoided those hard questions. And that is why I'm saying, I think we've reached a point where we must say, even if it means that as a country we must go through our own Damascus moment for the next 15, 20 years, let it be, so that we are saving the next generation from the crisis that we are sitting with. But it cannot be that in the next 100 years, when you speak of economic ownership in this country, it's whites and Indians. Then there's a problem there. And if we want to run away from the race issue because we say it's boxing, then we are dishonest in our conversations.
My thinking on this one is that obviously the issue we spoke about, the structure of the economy, still needs a lot of work to be done. And that's why I spoke about saying that we need to unpack, because there are people who are doing studies even in terms of systems and processes, check the policies. There could be good policies, like let's say the BEE to some extent, say, well, the way it was conceived. But we must unpack it and see where at the bottom, where is it working, or refine it and ensure that there is greater participation of black people in the economy, in those key sectors of the economy we are talking about. Also, like I say, we need to see them in agriculture, we need to see them in the banking sector, we need to see them more in manufacturing, in the mining more, to see them in the marine industry, like I mentioned before. So we need black presence in it. We want to see more malls by black people. We haven't seen them, I don't see them at all. More malls by black people. So in a way also, the other thing that is very critical that may also impede, in terms of progress, has been the issue of corruption. Corruption has to stop. You can't develop a country, where there is too much corruption, either in the private sector or in the public sector. It's draining, taking a lot of money out of the system. So that's my take on this one.
Guys, I have the awkward job of reminding us we're only here till 2. So we've got a few minutes, but I promise you guys I'm coming to you. Short and sweet. Hopefully it's a solution, because we want to end with some strong solutions.
Yeah, but I cannot show. No.
Oh, my name is Welcome Bogazi, by the way, it's the afternoon. Yes, I've been seated and listening. Seemingly, we kind of discussing the role of the state in all of this. And I'm kind of wondering, where do we draw the limits, where the state has to now end, and the people, the real matter that we are about here, then come into kind of play and have a say in whatever is happening. Because similarly, I'm listening also, I suppose the Abahlali is supposed to represent the civil society, so-called, if ever that still exists after the 1996 rearrangement of the structures in the country. So on that, what I was trying to build on is that I can kind of feel that what we are talking about is the politics of power and representation. And I'm also wondering, how can the learned panelists, it's only that now we're kind of short of time, how can they kind of define the two? Because seemingly we've got government, and seemingly we're talking about something else, and we've got the state, and we've got now the people, whom I suppose should be the ones who are informing the other structures. And I don't really get where exactly do they come into the real mix of things. That is my point in the sweetest and shortest way.
There was another gentleman
unfortunately, there's no much time. I was going to ask in this discourse of fallism, when we say decolonize education, what kind of curriculum are we going to have? Because we don't want to fall into the trap whereby and then after that we didn't know what to do, just like what happened in Arab, whereby was the regime and then what was next. So Sister Mililana, Sister Helena, I was thinking, I'm very worried that agriculture was taken away from us. I'm a product of Bantu education. I'm very worried that the nickel work was taken away from us. Do you know why I'm going to say that? Because none of you can sue a need of suing UMTAPO. Okay, it starts from there. And then after that, fashion design was introduced. It's the same thing, guys, come on. So now, we need to be prepared. When we say decolonize education, we need to be prepared about the curriculum that we want. Because if we say a professor is coming with theories and all that stuff, well then, who is going to sit? I don't want a generation whereby everybody's going to be academics. Who's going to go to the field? Who's going to produce food? We need food at the end of the day. So now, if you say he's coming with the theories and all that stuff, he's from Zimbabwe, by the way, and they've been very good about land in producing food. So we really need food, and we also must think about that, because I always think about that. Guys, really, what kind of curriculum do you want? I also want the education to be decolonized, but then sometimes I think around colonizing, how we're going to go about it, because it must start from a pansy, and we also need vocational education, whereby people will be able to do izinto ezineneniboyela phansi ezithi plumbing, izinto ezineniboyela phansi ezithi ugesi, izinto ezineniboyela phansi ekhona esithi ena ilokhuzane so those are the things some of the countries have been able to generate profits and all that stuff. Guys, we cannot be all academics.
Okay, so it's that time. So I've run out of time. There is no more time. So the last thoughts were that we would try and end with some strong solutions. But I'm going to say, hang around. Maybe we can still have those discussions informally. But just with my moderator power, I want to say two more things. Remember in the beginning, I said, let's try and flag solutions. Let's have this discourse. And the majority of the comments coming from both the floor and from the panel, actually, were generic solutions and a lot of tales of woe. All the stuff we know, all the systemic injustices, the problems. Let's flag that for tea. Let's try and get those solutions coming. And then, because I've stolen their time now, I wanted to just flag three things they said. A bit corny, but it puts things into perspective. This was something that David said. We're too busy not doing anything. Good one, just to remind us, perhaps even as academics, too busy just talking. And Plantler said, we're going to miss the whole goalpost. That we're so busy looking at the ball, we're going to miss the goalpost even if we shoot. And finally, another one from Schlantler, I was born poor, but I'm not poor in mind. With that, I'm going to hand over to Arun to close the dialogue.
Thank you, Chantal. It wasn't easy for you. I want to close today's program, but I also want us to think about the things we spoke about here in this room with these people. Let's not make the assumption that everybody outside of this room is conscientized and ready to run with us. We do live in a capitalist system that molds us in a particular way of how we think and act. And Tina, I don't think that the people in the fields are not people who can analyze. They may not be going through university education, but for me, some of my best ideas have come from talking to people who learn it firsthand every day. And because we're in this realm and we fly all over and we read big books, it doesn't mean our mothers and the people we know cannot analyze and carry the baton and run the relay, because we are here because of them. We would never be here in this room. So when we're running our relay, let's remember collective values of Ubuntu. And also people spoke about what system, should it be socialist, should it be capitalist, what should it be? I think in South Africa and the world over, we're at a point now where we're looking for a new system, not taking from all the systems. That's what we're looking for. And I want to believe that everyone in this room here will take it as their responsibility to contribute to that system. So I want to thank the people who are here, who participated, the participants who were here. You came from far and wide, and I was very impressed to see learners here, because I think you can run the race. So to everyone who took time to be here, thank you. I want to thank the panelists. It was great having you. Thank you, Chantal. The Vice Chancellor has left. I want to say thank you to him. I also want to say thank you to Francesca. Francesca, will you wave? When we came to ask if we could use the space, this is an art gallery. And immediately Francesca said yes. And before you leave, I would like you to look at the paintings, because they've put up the paintings for us with today's theme in mind. So thank you very much. We really appreciate that. I want to ask Tando to come forward. Tando, can anybody see him outside? And I want to ask Dr. Moyo to come forward. We have tokens of appreciation for the panel and Chantal. And Tando, also you know who they're going to. And once more, the announcement, if anybody wants to join the UMTAPO students movement, please speak with Tabile. She'll tell you more about it.
I think I'd like to also just extend a word of thanks and appreciation to each and every one of you who are here. Thank you so much for your participation and for your insights. And I'd like to thank you, Chantal, for facilitating this discussion for us. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Mohale, Dr. Mchali, as well as Professor Mutapori. Thank you so much, each and every one of you. I want to say that we don't have money. You know, we're here talking about issues of poverty. We don't have money, and these are just small tokens of our appreciation to you for having accepted our invitation. And we just want to say thank you. It's just a book, and I want to show it to some of you because it may be a book of interest to some of you as well. It's a Steve Biko book. It's called No Fears Expressed. And basically it's a compilation of Steve Biko's quotes on various topics and issues. So this is our token of appreciation to our panelists. The book is available at the Steve Biko Foundation. You can get it through via us, and I think my colleague Le Shokonolo is also selling the books just outside, if anyone of you wants to have the book. So Merun, I don't know how we're going to do this, but the first one that we will give out, let's give it to Professor Mutapori. Thank you so much. Mr. Mchali, thank you so much. Dr. Mohale, thank you so much. And our facilitator, Ms. Crystal, thank you so much. And then the other one was for our partner from UMTAPO, Arun, that one is for you. And then we also had another copy here for the Vice Chancellor. So we will hand it over in absentia. I'll give it to you, Dr. Moyo. Thank you so much, Sabulele.
Okay, thank you so much. I won't take so much time. So my role is just to give the gifts, because I spoke a lot, but also to just make a small comment. As someone who talked about sewing. Do you know that for you to write, in fact, when I was doing more than 25 years ago, when I went to school, we had to do knitting, both the boys and the girls. It helps you with handwriting. But those are some of the things which now miss from the curriculum. Actually, if you sew and do a lot of that, it helps you with writing skills later on. But anyway, but just to say thank you so much to the panelists on behalf of the Vice Chancellor who has left, and also on behalf of DUT and all the participants. Thank you, and I hope we can continue this discussion at some other point. Thank you so much.